Illness formed. Now we're talking about ailments in terms of diseases. That's what Daddy has told us here, diseases. But you see, we're now looking at health from the perspective of, apart from disease situations, all right, there are also other situations that are not diseases. That is usually you are emotional. So health comes from, it's not just the absence of this disease situation, it's actually a state of physical, mental, social, and psychological well-being. And so when disease is about something leading to usually very physical. But when you come down to the psychological, psychosocial areas, you find that health is beyond that. And that's what concerns adults. In children, maybe we won't talk so much about that. There's something about child psychology, it's not that. But for the adults, it begins more on the area of child psychology. So if you look at our ailments that we have here, there are very, very many ailments. They come from 4 areas: your physical environment, your biological environment, your chemical environment, and then your social environment. Name it, all of these situations come from those environments. Now that we're in the sun, we get dehydrated. If you have a sun, the sun can do so many things to you, all right? But sometimes will encourage other organisms to thrive in an area and to cause a problem to you. Sun can be very, very terrible. And wind, these are all physical environments. Wind can do so much. From the biblical point of view, if you have northeast wind, like Daddy told us, it will be very disastrous. Now, but just to mention the fact that it's also the issue of the biological environment, which is probably most of our problem. That's the bane of our problem. We don't have the same problem as we have in the Western world, largely differently. But because much more, we are more affected by our biological environment. We have bushes all around us, and you don't even know who lives here. These are all trees. When I touch them, I don't even know how much bacteria are picked. I don't know what habitates there, but they live with us. They are in symbiotic existence with us. When they thrive much more, or when our immunity falls, then we'll fall prey. So most times, I'm as a medical doctor, I will always say this, that you were created, God created you so wonderfully to give you a defense line, a very strong defense line. So most times people come to me and asking for drugs, and they're so, it's so stressed. It's all drugs. They want to come and say, okay, I'm not going to be preaching or something. But sometimes I tell them that before you come to me, you have actually had plenty of self-protection. It is when you remove that your personal immunity, which is inherent in you. If you have a strong immunity, the most ailments that we have about the malaria, bacterial infections, the infective diseases, they are less in you. So one way to deal with ill health is to improve your immunity. And how do you improve your immunity? You can do so many things to improve your immunity. Eat well, good nutrition, good exercises, all right? And then sometimes you take supplements, okay? So if you have those things, you begin to find that exercise, rest, and good nutrition. Exercise, rest, and good nutrition. You can build up your own. So you don't even need to start going to a doctor. Now, because of your self-protection, which you have in you, and I'll give you a good example. If you have HIV, HIV has a tendency to destroy your immunity. It is one thing that fights against you by destroying your immunity. Once your immunity goes down, if I touch this leaf, I can tell you, I can go back home and I have an ailment. Okay? I can brush through here, I can go through the bush, I can go through that back part and let my car somewhere there. Now, nothing happens to me. But quite often, I don't realize that in all of these things, I've had encounters. I have an evil encounter with things that can destroy me. And God will protect me usually and continuously. But if my immunity drops, like in HIV, you pick up all kinds of ailments, things that won't be there. So that tells you the role immunity plays in all of us. So for the adult male, the adult female, it's going to be you have to protect yourself by improving your own immunity, classically. So like I said, all ailments are divided into infective and non-infective ailments. Infective ailments are the ones that I talked about. They come with all these environmental issues about physical, biological, and all that. And non-infective ailments sometimes come from within you. In other words, somehow, somewhere along the line, the system works as to promote a disease condition. Common ones are hypertension, diabetes, okay, arthritis, and some other kinds of ailments. You can even talk about cancers and the rest of them. So these things can occur But I will tell you, with a good immunity resting, you can actually push them out of the way. If you have an ailment, say headache, that's symptom ready. Headache, dizziness, weakness, cough, catarrh, something in the throat, diarrhea, like he said, abdominal pain, all of these ones. There's no point, trying to find out what it is or asking Mr. B, we were treated with this drug, let me have a substitute. It is extremely wrong. I said, pray, but find a counselor, and that's your doctor. If you don't have a relationship with a counselor, it's not the best. Even a nurse will do very well. A well-trained nurse will do very well. So just report back and says, I'm feeling this way. There's a place to watch yourself, no doubt. It's also a place to understudy yourself. All right? So sometimes, for most people, you have malaria and they know they're having malaria. They don't have to go to a doctor to treat for malaria. But for them, and I say so for two reasons. In good environments, these drugs are not available to you. They are not. So even the drugs you need to treat yourself are not there, particularly the major strong drugs, antibiotics and the rest of them. And that's because they also have concluded that their health system is good enough personnel, enough facilities, so there are no hindrances for you in terms of that cash, or the body cash, but let me just explain that. First, access. If a health center is very far from you, then you don't have an access. There, they can use the phone and have an access. So in their crime, they hide the drugs. They don't allow you to use it so that you don't abuse the drugs. But here, for somebody that lives in Kutuwenji, where is Kutuwenji? Who knows where Kutuwenji is? Okay. Where's the other one I want to mention now? Oklaha. Yes, for a baby there who is having fever, running temperature, and all that. If you don't want to use the local milk drug, which we don't even advise because we don't know the dose, it's a place to give paracetamol. And if you don't have a health center around, the chances are that most of them that have fever at that age, below the age of 5, sudden onset of temperature and all that, many of them will come down with malaria. So if you have basic treatment for malaria, you can actually knock it off. And then if you are not succeeding in paracetamol, if you have some malaria drugs, we call them ACTs now, the syrups and all that, they could just, and for a male, if you understudy yourself and think this is malaria, you could treat. That is because if you go to any of the hospitals, you stay long enough. The private hospitals are expensive. So you see, the day we get immunity for malaria, vaccine for malaria,